we might already be dead. Great. This is brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Stop it, mate. People have been freaking out on social media over the last 2 or 3 days about the news headlines of this butterfly-shaped hole opening on the sun. This does not sound good at all. It really doesn't, but let me explain. First of all, this didn't actually happen only 2 days ago. This actually happened early in September, so people just have brought it up now for some reason. Now, it is essentially a coronal hole, so it's kind of scary because it's going to fire out solar storms and things at Earth. It's not dangerous to us, but it could cause power outages and other things to be happening on Earth. It is scary, though, when you think about how big it is. 35 times the size. That's insane. And obviously that could fire some pretty nasty things and solar wind towards Earth because it's coming in our direction. But as I say, don't worry, it's not dangerous to us, it just could cause outages and some stuff. You may remember last time, though, when we had something like this, not this big, but we had it, we got the aurora, which was visible all around Earth, so this could potentially happen again. So keep your eyes out, you're going to be fine, but as always, I will keep you updated.
The Simpsons going for a massive blackout tomorrow while we have this massive solar storm that's happening, and all of a sudden in Alaska, of all places, unrelated, we have these light spears showing up. Yeah, it's late, but this is deep. In Alaska, again, of all places, unrelated, shot by Vincent. But wait, did I tell you there's a massive blackout happening right now in Dominican Republic as of the last hour? But what really is a solar flare? We got a lot to get into. So as of right now, we still have another solar flare coming overnight and tomorrow, and this is just unreal what we're seeing. But is this right here what we're really seeing? And why does every ancient religion indicate something in the north? But first, the Simpsons prediction. This video and a whole bunch of videos said 1998, there's the episode The Last Day of Springfield. No episode even exists. But that doesn't mean there isn't something groundbreaking happening right this second. I'm getting so sick of fact checking y'all. Y'all post knowingly false information for views all the time. The truth is way more entertaining. And it's not just the light pillars that showed up. Chris caught this thing that showed up then disappeared. But is it a solar flare? Are these spiritual and frequency type objects we're seeing in the sky? We're seeing the aurora in South Carolina. That's not normal. And yes, that's what my eyes and my camera saw. Just because it's not in your area does not mean it's in mine. But we know the auroras come from the North Pole. Always have, and always will. But there's also another place or two on this earth that causes the same kind of thing to show up in the sky. Who knows where? Not related at all. Did I show you these light pillars in Alaska? And I do wonder what Bouvet Island's up to. What's really in the North Pole, and why are our modern maps not show any land there when we know there was and still probably is land there? And why do half of the ancient religions of this world show a heaven at the North Pole? It's crazy. Why does the Bible talk about all these lights emitting from God's throne all the time? And why, when I was searching the North Pole and stuff around that, it shows Jesus Christ? Rufus Nigra, the great magnetic north? That reminds me of what Satan said in his heart. I'll ascend to heaven above the stars of God. I'll set my throne on high. I'll sit on the mount of the assembly that far reaches of the north. What's that old Christmas thing? He sees you when you're sleeping. He sees you when you're awake. Kind of like Jesus saying, behold, I come quickly. My reward is with me to give every man according to his work shall be. I've literally been trying to tell you guys this for 2 or 3 years now. There's something massive happening in our world spiritually right now, and that's why you can feel all these frequencies and these solar flares and the Schumann frequency. It's all related. The darkness of men's imaginations being exposed by their actions because they cannot control themselves. All the mass casualties, etc. So whether it's coming from the north or somewhere else, time's almost up.
What is transvestigation? The conspiracy theory that tries to use bogus science to prove that many celebrities are secretly transgender. In a recent interview done by Teen Vogue, promoters of transvestigation, or transvestigators, spread misinformation on sites like YouTube and X about supposed hidden transgender celebs. We're talking Beyonce, Taylor Swift, and athletes like Serena Williams. It ties closely into transmisogyny, identifying the targets as not feminine enough to have been assigned female at birth. Teen Vogue reported that followers will point out the size of a person's hands, the width of their shoulders, the way they walk, or a variety of other specious features to prove their supposed transness. This bears similarities to the 19th century pseudoscience of phrenology, in which a German doctor drew conclusions about a person's psychological traits from measuring bumps on their skull. This community of online sleuths use varying sinister criteria to identify a supposed closeted transgender celebrity, which risks real-world issues for real transgender people. As per GLAAD, fake pseudoscience evidence about a celeb's physical appearance impacts both trans and cisgender people. With transvestigation, the targets of hate and harassment are cisgender celebrities. According to one transvestigator, every celebrity is a different gender to the one they were assigned at birth. Aside from the invasive speculation about celebs' bodily parts and biological sex, the racism and misogyny spread by transvestigators is insidious. Female celebs, particularly black female celebs, are put on blast as a product to be consumed and a body to be interrogated. Trans investigations are invasive and perpetuate the idea that not disclosing a transgender identity is deceptive. It's a personal choice if and when a trans person shares this part of themselves. Sometimes keeping this information private can be life-saving.
If you've got any Coke on you, it's about to get pretty bad. There has been a few recalls over the past year, but now there's another one for the second time this year. Coca-Cola has reportedly recalled over 70,000 cans and bottles because of what just happened. A while ago they found chlorine and chloride in fizzy drinks, which of course is not good and you definitely do not want to be ingesting that. But now they found traces of metal contamination, which to me sounds a bit worse. This was mainly in the States, of course, and in Texas, and they recalled them from a bunch of shops, but also was happening in Asia and other places in the world. There is specific multi-packs which have been affected by this and recalled, but of course if you're not in the States, you probably wouldn't know that, so I'll give you the codes in a minute. But if you do have a batch of drinks that have that code on it, then I would recommend either taking them back and exchanging them if you can, or just chucking it away, because it's not worth drinking it. If you're going to be ingesting metal, probably not the best idea. This right here is a list of all of the multi-packs that are affected, so make sure you screenshot that now. Share this video about with someone who drinks Cokes and fizzy drinks so that they can check their packs too, and I'll keep you updated.
The mysterious fog is back in Europe and the UK. Also, New York was just looking like this yesterday. Meanwhile, completely unrelated, things keep on happening in the sky. These meteors or these satellite dishes or broken apart stuff in space just flying around, right? By the way, unrelated, you know when the Black Plague happened, they thought it happened because crazy mystic air? Not relevant to this at all. It's just fog, y'all. Be real. Don't forget, it's 11/11 today. Watch my last video. Yeah, things are happening in the sky every day. And even those have been happening for a year and a half. Every time they tell us it's satellites or it's asteroids or something else. But notice how they always go with the horizon and they pick up and slow down their speed. You know, if it's around a certain location, they can say it's a starship or something. Otherwise, it's just satellites and it's just meteors. You guys, don't forget about how foggy it is all over the place. Completely unrelated, speaking of Europe, look at all these latest drone sightings happening all the time right now. What's also in the sky, very crazy, we have a new alien spaceship allegedly coming towards the Earth, and we have people saying that 3-Eye Atlas dropped off 4 or 5 ships while in the orbit. I mean, come on now, you guys, what is really coming? New York again. One thing we know is planes lately have not stood a chance. Who knows what's happening in the sky? You remember the Schumann frequency today and yesterday? The massive blackout while we had these solar storms always coming down south? Ready for the most mind-blowing part? His last video? Wow, I wonder what's going to be cleared for what to come. So what are we really seeing in the sky? Hold on, I'm getting a call from my friend BB. Hello? The time's now? Okay.
You're saying you people found literal hell in a pocket ocean.
Look, we were sent down to continue a years-long operation on dismantling a massive rock layer that they believed had open space behind it, okay? You need to realize this barrier was made out of materials we didn't even understand, right? Nothing on the elemental chart. And so we had all these atomically pressurized submersible drilling platforms. I mean, the agency literally spent decades creating this. We were at the tail end of the operation, right? And as the barrier got thinner, the sounds that we began hearing from the other side, man, were nothing short of nightmare fuel. I mean, it sounded unhuman, right? And the day we were set to break through it, I said to my lieutenant, listen, I'm not too sure if this is a good idea, right? We don't know what the hell's behind there, and nature clearly intended for us not to, you know? And he just goes, buddy, the agency has 40 years behind this. He goes, no pun intended, but we're in too deep, right? And so we all gather around as we're about to break through, right? We're looking through these monitors, which showed a live feed of what's outside the sub. And as we broke through, man, the atmosphere on the sub just got really dark. We were instructed to traverse inside this thing. I mean, imagine just entering an abyssal pocket that's been sealed for eternity. Buddy, as we get about a quarter mile deep into this thing, we start seeing these translucent, sort of frothy figures of what looked almost like people. I mean, they didn't even look tangible, right? Like non-physical. And we're just jaw dropped staring at the monitor as my lieutenant goes, "What the hell is this place?" And I just say back to him, "I think you said it." You know, out of nowhere, one of these things is literally approaching the sub head on, right? And we don't know what to do. It just keeps coming, and it literally just passes through into the submarine, right? It was the face of a woman, looked about mid-50s, and she just goes, "I'm so sorry," right? We're all just frozen. And I go, "Who are you? What is your name?" Right? She goes, "Lisa Ann Becker," and she just fades back out of the sub. We immediately turned around and tried to start heading for the opening where we'd gotten in. And I kid you not, as we're going, mass amounts of these spirits are just swirling out of the exit. I mean, talk about unleashing hell, right? Look, we get back to base, we're all panicking, explaining to our higher-ups what we'd seen, and place gets labeled Paranautica, right? We get put on leaves of absence, project gets blacklisted. But me, I just couldn't stop thinking about it. And so I start doing all this research, right? I scour every source possible for the name Lisa Ann Becker, and I end up finding a woman by this name who'd passed away in a federal prison about 30 years prior. She was convicted on charges I won't even repeat, and her mugshot was literally identical to that woman's face from Paranautica.
If you've got one of these in your house, you're being listened to right now. Many people genuinely believe Alexa and these sort of speakers are actually spyware. Now, of course, there's no proof that they're spyware, but there is proof that they're constantly listening to you. Of course, if you have an Alexa, you'll know, even if it's not playing and you then suddenly say, "Alexa is then going to turn on." Yeah, it just randomly comes on. And this is documented. It literally says online, Alexa is always listening. That's the key bit. Now, many people have reported some pretty scary things happening with their actual device, with it turning on randomly at 3 a.m. and start talking back, but no one was talking. Now, it doesn't mean that it's spyware, it doesn't mean that someone is always physically listening to you, but the device is. This device is always listening, but what does it do with the data and the recordings? That's what we're probably never gonna know.
We really glazed over how insanely bonkers it is that a place like Epstein's Island even existed. But what most people don't know is that it wasn't the first of its kind. Decades earlier, in the middle of Lake Michigan, a desolate island owned by a wealthy Detroit socialite became the subject of all sorts of wild conspiracy theories. And at first, a conspiracy theory is exactly what most people thought it was. While on the surface, it was just a summer camp for young boys teaching them survivalist skills in nature, behind the scenes, these children were being flown to this island to be exploited, filmed, and traded among the men who sponsored the island's operations. The owner of North Fox Island, a man named Frank Sheldon, had purchased the land specifically for this purpose. As a matter of fact, the very first thing he did was build an airstrip on the island as a means to shuttle boys in and out. One of the men who sponsored the island was a former school teacher named Gerald Richards. He and Sheldon ran a nonprofit called Brother Paul's Children Mission. The organization was supposed to help underprivileged youth connect with nature, but upon their plane touching down on the landing strip, the boys would soon realize that that wasn't going to be the case. Now, it's a lot to get into, so much so that we had to make our podcast episode about this in 2 parts, because the owner of the island would eventually flee the country, making it extremely difficult to charge him with any involvement. The story disappeared from the news fairly quickly and was just dismissed as an urban legend. But North Fox Island was just a tiny piece in a much larger picture of child trafficking rings happening around the world. It wouldn't be until the early 2000s that more people began examining the evidence themselves, realizing just how extensive this operation truly was. North Fox Island has also been tied to a series of unsolved child murders committed by an unknown perpetrator known only as the Oakland County Child Killer. It's an awful lot to dive into, but if you're interested, you can check out my 2-part episode on this topic, or I can make a part 2 here.
There's a video of the Queen. When the Queen died, there's a mic on that they didn't know was on, and they leaked some information, and there was a conversation going on that wasn't supposed to go on live television. While they were recording it, you can hear the queen's like team saying some weird stuff. Listen.
As you can see.
Okay, so this is during the queen's funeral procession.
Yeah.
She said, this is the exact words, the death is irreversible and the fact she is trapped. And then it just cuts off. So what do you think that means?
The death is irreversible? So it was planned?
I think, this is what I think. I think, like I said, what if at a certain time when you reach that level of power and success, whoever, just importance, something comes into you, or they put spirits, entities, or even different people inside of your body to control. Now, she's saying the death is irreversible, but she's still trapped. Now, this is just my own theory, but what if they mean by like she's still trapped? That spirit, they weren't able to transfer to somebody else yet. So whoever that, you know, entity is, was stuck in the dead body that they can't pass on.
Yeah.
Same message. Now think, iPhone, that's not just internet phone.
Y'all have no idea how much is being fed in this one picture. I'm about to give y'all an occultic ride that most people aren't even aware of. So two major things point out to me when I look at this picture. One, major occultism. Why? What is she holding? And we'll come back to black magic in a minute because it all fits together. What she's holding is a jester. You may not know how symbolically powerful the jester is. In the highest rank of occultism, you'll find a royal order of jesters. I can't say too much on this, so just Google royal order of jesters. But why the jester? The jester is the only figure that could deliver bad news to the king, but they also entertain the king. Entertainers, if you will. They were basically second in command to the monarch, and they were to entertain the guests at the royal court, but they did so much more than that. And they're doing the same thing today. So with her holding a jester, let's see what the jesters do in detail. Song, music, storytelling, actors, musicians, etc. But also performing magic tricks or just magic. So they are elite entertainers that entertain the most powerful. But remember how we're talking about magic. Her new look is really starting to remind me of something. Something like this. High-class witches and warlocks are literally a servant to a demon. And what would you guess the deepest, darkest thoughts of a demon are? Their physical appearance does change because one of their habits. So they are being awarded a jester, partaking in every form of the jester, entertaining the highest societies of this world. But who is the god of this world? Oh, what is this? Another award? Look at the staff it's holding. That reminds me of something. Oh yeah, that's right. The same staff right here. The same staff is right here. Again, for the god of this world. And again, the god of this world. The world is exactly the same as when we had kings and queens and they had serfs, and we would live on the king's land. We live on the king's land because we pay taxes on what we own. The only difference now is the jesters don't just entertain the king, they entertain the masses and drag all the masses to the god of this world. It's quite literally the best story ever told.
So I dug real deep into it, and I got to the understanding that we're living in a multi-dimensional universe, and there's at least 11 dimensions, otherwise the universe would collapse. Each dimension is a 90-degree angle right above the next one, compactified, so they're sitting right on top of us. So within less than a Planck unit of space above you, there's another dimension that actually exists with a whole nother universe happening simultaneously while we're sitting right here. Wild.
That's hard to fathom. It's hard to fathom. So right here where we're sitting right now, there's a whole nother dimension of a whole nother universe happening, life taking place.
Yes.
Right in the same space that we are.
Right here where we are. Right here. Vast too, vast. Just as vast as ours is vast. And from higher dimensions, they experience time differently. Time really doesn't exist. The past, present, and the future happen all at once. So somebody, for example, from the fifth dimension would look at us and they'd be able to see us. Imagine us in this building here, but imagine when I first walked in, and imagine us in here, and imagine me like in the bathroom or something. They'd be able to see us in all the different rooms. The different rooms represent different time frames of existence within this structure. So they can see the past, present, and future at the same time. So it's pretty cool. Weird stuff starts happening the higher the dimensions you go.
So is the idea that when you're in a higher dimension, you can see below lower dimensions, but you can't see dimensions above you?
Exactly, unless you have the capability of matching. First, you have to obtain the frequency of a higher dimension and then match that frequency to be able to walk in. So
match the frequency.
Yeah, so for example, okay, my hand is stopped now by this table, right? Why is it stopped? I'm not really touching the table. There's repulsion going on. Electromagnetic repulsion between the electrons in my hand is repelling the electrons in the table. You don't really touch anything. Now, if I can match the subatomic frequency of the atoms in this chunk of wood here on this table, with my hand, I'd be able to pass my hand right through this table unscathed. Why? Because atoms are 99.999% empty space. Nothing is really here. Everything is only a light wave slowed down to a particular frequency. And so if you can match frequencies, you can merge with things. You can walk through walls, all that kind of stuff. The things that seem paranormal could be advanced beings have tapped into some type of understanding of how to match different frequencies in our dimension and appear apparitional or paranormal, but in true reality, they could just be taking a peek in.
And how do we come to the understanding that these higher dimensions exist? Like, what is the most basic evidence that we have of this?
Quantum physics proves it. See, when we look into the quantum world, everything changed. In standard physics is where we are right now, in the large side of physics. But the smaller you go, the more weird things get. We find that particles transphase in and out of existence, and they go to different dimensions. We even know now that some of our synapses of our thoughts in our brain phase out of this dimension and they go somewhere else, and then they come back again. And this has all been tracked and traced through the understanding of quantum mechanics and quantum physics and understanding that dimensions exist. The biggest way that we made a model of this is we figured out how to create something called quasi-crystals. Now, these quasi-crystals are these multi-dimensional crystals. We actually created an 8th dimensional quasi-crystal.
We created this?
Yes, we created it.
How did we create it?
We created in a laboratory using different technologies, and then from that 8th dimensional quasi-crystal, it casts a shadow of itself down to a 4th dimensional quasi-crystal, which then casts down a shadow which creates a sphere. So we know that the universe is most likely the shadow of a higher dimension. It's crazy stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of mind-bending.